You didn't just care. You carried the room. The tension, the silence, the emotional static no one else even seemed to notice. You were the one who felt the shift before a word was spoken. The one who sensed the distance before it showed up in behavior. The one who softened what was harsh, translated what was confusing, and held together what should have fallen apart long ago. And because you made it look natural, people assumed it cost you nothing. That is where the real wound begins. Not in loving too much, not even in giving too much, but in becoming the emotional shelter for everyone else, while having nowhere safe to rest yourself. And here is the part almost no one understands. Empaths do not suddenly disappear because they stopped caring. They disappear because caring began to cost them their soul. And if you stay with me, I'm going to show you why this vanishing is almost never random. Why it often begins years before the person physically leaves. And why, once the deepest threshold is crossed, they rarely come back as the same person. Because what looks like silence on the outside may actually be a revolution inside the psyche. And once you understand that, you will never see an empath's disappearance the same way again. Let's begin with something painful. The invisible weight empaths carry. The empath is almost never seen breaking in real time. They are seen helping, listening, understanding, forgiving, making excuses for people, holding conversations together, keeping the atmosphere from collapsing. But while everyone else is leaning on them, they are quietly collapsing under the weight of what no one can see. That is the first truth. Empaths do not just hear words. They feel undercurrents, contradiction, tension behind tone, resentment masking as politeness, fear beneath arrogance, sadness hidden inside someone's joke. They do not walk through life only observing. They receive. And that changes the cost of every relationship they enter. Because when you are built that way, you are never just having a conversation. You are reading the unsaid, carrying the emotional residue, registering what is off, absorbing what others deny, trying to stabilize atmospheres that were unstable before you arrived. Think about how exhausting that is. Not once, not occasionally. Years of being the one who notices, the one who senses, the one who calms, the one who stays measured while everyone else spills chaos into the room. And here is the trap. Because empaths often make emotional labor look graceful, people assume it is effortless. They do not see the drained nervous system. They do not see the inner fatigue. They do not see the moments after the phone call, after the dinner, after the conflict, after the comfort giving. When the empath sits alone and feels like something inside them has been pulled thin again and again. And when that goes unseen long enough, it creates a very specific pain. The pain of being valued for what you provide, while remaining unseen in what it costs you to provide it. That pain compounds quietly. And if you are the empath, you already know this. You know what it feels like to be everyone's safe place, while having no safe place of your own. To be the one people come to in crisis, but not the one they notice is quietly fading. To be praised for your patience, while your own needs are treated like an inconvenience. Pause on that. Because what breaks an empath is not always cruelty in its obvious form. Sometimes it is something slower, something more invisible, being relied on without being recognized, being needed without being nourished. And that is where the crack begins. Not with drama, with depletion. But depletion alone is not what makes an empath vanish. Something even deeper happens before that. Because most empaths do not just learn to care too much in adulthood. They were shaped that way long before they had words for it. And that is where the real story starts. From childhood, you learned to read the room. Most people think sensitivity is a personality trait. For many empaths, it is older than that. It is adaptation. It began in the early architecture of life, in homes where tension had to be felt before it was named, in environments where mood shifts mattered, where silence meant something, where expression could not always be trusted, where emotional weather changed quickly enough that being unaware came with cost. So the empath learned to scan, to read tone before language, to notice posture, breath, hesitation, contradiction, to feel the emotional climate before anyone said what was wrong. That is not mere softness. That is survival becoming sensitivity. And when survival patterns mature without being healed, they can look beautiful from the outside. The child who had to notice everything becomes the adult who is so intuitive. The child who had to manage other people's energy becomes the adult who is so understanding. The child who learned to stay regulated in emotional chaos becomes the adult everyone calls calm and safe. But under that is often an old wound. Because when your nervous system is trained to orient around other people's emotional states, you can grow up confusing receptivity with purpose. You start to feel valuable when needed, connected when overextended, good when self-erased, lovable when useful. That is where the foundation of the empath's breaking point is laid. Not in one relationship, not in one betrayal, in an identity built around emotional adaptation. And this identity is seductive because it earns praise. People admire your depth, your patience, your compassion, your ability to handle difficult people, your gift for staying understanding even when others would walk away. But admiration can hide exploitation, because the more available the empathy is, the more likely others build themselves around your availability, without asking whether you can sustain it or whether it is slowly draining you. Without realizing what they call your gift is actually costing you pieces of yourself. And for a long time, the empath may not ask that either, because the role feels familiar. The role feels moral, meaningful. They feel connected with who they are. So they keep showing up, keep absorbing, keep explaining away other people's behavior, keep translating harm into context, keep telling themselves their exhaustion is temporary. But it isn't temporary. It is cumulative, and the psyche always keeps score. Read that again in your mind. The psyche always keeps score. Every time you override your body, every time you ignore your dread, every time you swallow the truth to preserve the peace, every time you stay soft where you should have set a boundary, every time you call self-abandonment love, the psyche records it, and eventually it answers. But the psyche does not answer the way the rational mind expects. It does not always send a neat thought that says, "This relationship is bad for you." Often, it sends something stranger first. Dreams, fatigue, panic, numbness, a feeling you cannot explain. This is where the real warnings begin. When people talk about an empath leaving, they often focus on the final act. They miss the warnings no one recognizes, the silence, the withdrawal, the no contact, finally the disappearance. But long before the disappearance becomes visible, the warnings have already begun. They just happen in languages most people ignore. The body, the dreams, the intuition, the inexplicable heaviness, the sudden exhaustion around certain people, the growing inability to keep doing what you once did automatically. This matters because empaths rarely wake up one morning and decide, from nowhere, to vanish. Usually the psyche has been trying to get their attention for a long time, first through subtle discomfort, then through emotional fatigue, then through resentment they feel ashamed of. then through bodily symptoms, then through a strange inner deadness that no amount of being patient can fix. And still, many of them stay. Why? Because leaving is not just a practical decision, it is an identity crisis. To leave means risking guilt, misunderstanding, being seen as selfish, hurting people you still care about, admitting that what you called love may have contained self-betrayal, admitting that your role in the pattern was not just compassion, but conditioning. That is terrifying. So the empath delays. They tell themselves what the conscious mind has been trained to say, what Carl Jung would call the voice of the ego, trying to maintain order. Maybe I'm just overwhelmed. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I need more rest. Maybe this is just a phase. Maybe if I explain it better, they'll finally see me. Maybe if I love harder, something will shift. But Jung warned us about this exact moment, when the ego clings to a story that protects reality instead of revealing it. Because when a pattern cuts deep enough, love harder is not healing. It is participation in your own fragmentation. And this is where the real pain begins. Not loud, not dramatic, but psychological. The kind Jung described as the split between the conscious self and the deeper self, because something beneath the surface already knows. It knows the truth the empath keeps negotiating with. It feels the cost long before the mind admits it. It begins withdrawing energy, quietly, precisely, without permission. And now the empath is in a cruel, almost sacred tension, still caring, still understanding, still hoping, but slowly, unmistakably, losing the ability to survive the cost of staying. This is why the shift is so invisible to the outside world, because the empath does not erupt. They recede. Their smile grows thinner. Their words become fewer. Their presence softer. Their spirit less willing to reach. They are still there, but something essential, something Jung would call the life energy of the psyche, has already begun to withdraw. The world notices breakdowns. It rarely notices soul exhaustion. And that is why, when the empath finally leaves, people repeat the same hollow line. I had no idea. But the truth is, there were signs. There are always signs. The tragedy is, the psyche rarely screams first. It whispers. And whispers are easy to ignore, especially when they ask us to face what we don't want to see. So why doesn't the psyche just say it clearly? Why does it speak in withdrawal, in symbols, in quiet detachment? To understand that, we have to step fully into Jung's world, where the unconscious doesn't argue with you. It reveals you. This is where the conversation stops being ordinary relationship psychology. Because what happens in the empath's breaking point is not only emotional, it is archetypal. Jung understood that the human psyche is not ruled by conscious thought alone. Beneath the social self, beneath the rational voice, beneath the personality others know, there exists a deeper organizing center, a deeper intelligence, one that does not primarily speak through linear explanation. It speaks through symbols, pressure, dreams, compulsions, inner tension, sudden knowing, crisis, rupture. The ego likes clarity. The deeper psyche likes necessity. And when necessity becomes strong enough, it acts. This is why an empath's departure can feel so shocking to everyone else. Because what appears as sudden behavior on the outside may actually be the final visible expression of an invisible process that has been unfolding below awareness for years. That is pure Jung. The conscious mind says, I'm trying. I can handle this. It's complicated. They need me. I just need to be more patient. But the deeper self says something else. The deeper self watches what the ego refuses to admit. It tracks the cost, the fragmentation, the repetition, the deadness entering the soul, the amount of life being traded away to preserve a role. And eventually, if the ego continues overriding reality, the deeper self intervenes. Not gently, decisively. That intervention can look like collapse, like panic, like numbness, like a complete inability to continue the old pattern one more day. Or, in the empath's case, like vanishing. And when that happens, the person themselves may struggle to explain it. They only know this: if I stay, something essential in me will vanish. That is not melodrama. That is the psychic truth, and is often felt before it can be spoken. This is the part people miss. The empath does not leave because they feel nothing. They leave because they can no longer survive what they feel. That is a completely different story. And once we understand that, we can finally name the archetypes hiding inside this process. Because the empath who vanishes is not just acting like an overwhelmed person. They are moving through mythic patterns. And every archetype that rises in that sequence changes the soul that passes through it.